Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses as we begin with Part 1, Introduction, from the Adepts in the Eastern Esoteric Tradition by Manly Palmer Hall. Part 2, The Arhats of Buddhism. The Adepts in the Eastern Esoteric Tradition by Manly Palmer Hall. Part 2, The Arhats of Buddhism. This work is a section of a comprehensive survey of the Adept tradition, which will be complete in 15 parts. It is issued in the present form because of the unprecedented rise in the cost of book production. Only in this way can the material be made available to students at a reasonable price. The Arhats of Buddhism. Introduction. In Buddhism, the Adept tradition is but lightly veiled. For hundreds of years, the followers of the Doctrine have sought to attain the internal serenity, which is the peculiar attribute of the perfected human being. Immediately after the establishment of the Brotherhood, disciples of Buddhistic philosophy were taught that religion could be literally accepted or mystically experienced. Those content merely to acknowledge allegiance could expect only a degree of personal consolation. Even though they were learned enough to examine the structure of the system, they could not know by personal experience the living power of the Dharma. For such, adeptship was remote because the impulse toward enlightenment was not sufficiently strong. The greater mysteries of Buddhism were reserved for those of larger sincerity who were impelled to fulfill the disciplines and to dedicate their lives and their hearts to the realization of the law. In the Southern school, such dedication required a monastic career in which all personal responsibilities and attachments were renounced. In the Northern school, this was modified, and internal achievement was available to all, regardless of their physical stations, trades, or professions. The Mahayana system went so far as to acknowledge that adeptship could be attained without acceptance of Buddhism and without instruction by any teacher. The light could come entirely from within, and several of the great sages were especially venerated because they had accomplished solitary illumination. The Buddhist adept is usually called an arhat or rabat. In some respects, the Western and Eastern concepts are not identical. The European adept was much more concerned with the physical problems of policy, education, and science than the Eastern initiate. One point should be clarified, however. Contrary to Western belief, Buddhism is not a doctrine of non-action. It does not reward the individual who is concerned solely with his own improvement. The attitude is that the external improvement of society must result from the internal enlightenment of the human being. The Arhat, therefore, serves through the use of the yogic powers within himself, and his sphere of activity is not made manifest through the agitations of his objective personality. Furthermore, Buddhism does not envision the Arhat as a Superman. The end which the wise seek is identity with universal truth. Even wisdom is subordinate to union with the law. As a result of the grand concept, Eastern Arhats did not become princes over nations, conquerors, or brilliant intellectuals. They remained within the Sangha and seldom had any sphere of authority outside the voluntary admiration of their disciples. They were forbidden wealth and luxury by their code, but in no way regarded these restrictions as calamities. Some of the Arhats certainly achieved fame and distinction, but always as teachers and as persons of exceptional gentleness and humility. Those who momentarily assumed belligerent attitudes only did so in order to reveal some particular instruction to a confused or arbitrary follower. Like the sea, they might permit their surfaces to appear ruffled, but the depths were always silent and composed. Like the Western adept, the Buddhist Arhat was credited with miraculous powers. This phase of the concept was especially emphasized in Lamaism. Actually, most of the miracles attributed to the Buddhist sages were merely symbolical accounts of internal powers and were not intended to be accepted literally. Miracles were performed through men and not by men, and the miraculous was actually the natural result of an expansion of interior realization. It was always the law fulfilling itself that appeared wonderful to those who did not understand. There is division of opinion among modern Buddhists as to the dimensions of the adept hierarchy. The Northern school certainly believed that the great teachers of the world, including non-Buddhists, formed part of an overgovernment. This invisible fraternity of the illumined is the true Sangha, of which the physical assembly is only a shadow. Buddhism does not teach, however, that the adept hierarchy aggressively dominates or directs human activity. This would be contrary to the original teachings of Buddha. Man grows by his own merit and not by virtues thrust upon him. The activities of the hierarchy are limited to such universal concerns as are beyond the present state of human enlightenment. Otherwise, the Arhats wait in silent meditation to be discovered by those who deserve instruction and are willing to earn the right of growth through personal consecration and endeavor. In some Buddhist schools, the adept or Arhat is regarded as a personification of the overself. Each man's teacher is the focus of reality from which is suspended the illusionary personality. The search for the transcendent self is the quest for the hierarchy. This should be remembered when examining certain fables and legends regarding these exalted teachers. Truth is the supreme reality, or Adi Buddha. The great hierarchy is the unfoldment of truth through all the worlds, planes, and conditions of being. As it descends into obscurity and the darkness of form, truth is diluted until only a ray or part remains. Each of these rays is a thread of consciousness, and the truth seeker may ascend this thread until finally he comprehends the source. In China, the Arhats are called Lohans, or those who sing the sacred mantras. These Lohans, in turn, are embodiments of those fragmentary truths everywhere revealing themselves and inviting thoughtful examination. The law is never entirely formless, but builds appearances which, if understood, will assist the disciple on his lengthy journey along the middle path. Those who are observant first of small matters and by the gradual enrichment of their inner lives expand their transcendental resources, advance quietly but inevitably along the way of liberation. The Arhat, however, pauses at the gate and renews the vow of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, who refuses to enter the great peace until all creatures have received the doctrine in their hearts. This decision of self-sacrifice is not ordered or required. It is a voluntary acceptance of responsibility. The disciple does not return to this world in the humble appearance of a monk because God so demands, but because in his own heart he is moved to this decision by a deep and wonderful compassion. For this reason, the Arhats and the Arhat Bodhisattvas are the most deserving. They have given not something of what they have, but all of what they are. Manly Palmer Hall, September 1953, Los Angeles, California. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.